Final Fantasy XIV is my favorite story. From the moment I finished the stream where I finished Endwalker for the first time, my face completely stained with tears, I was so sure that it was my favorite video game story and my favorite video game in general. And that, I did that, I don't know, 3 years ago or something, maybe 2.5, and that has not changed since. There are games in the future, there are games in the future that I'll play, like Final Fantasy VII Re-Trilogy Part 3, or Deltarune, Chapter 5 and onwards, or maybe The Witcher 4, or Cyberpunk Orion, I think I'm pronouncing it right, that I really have incredibly high hopes for, that I think could potentially measure up and maybe surpass Final Fantasy XIV. But as of yet, there have been challengers, and no one's usurped Final Fantasy XIV. However, that has to do with the Endwalker story, up until the end of Endwalker. I had some problems with Dawn Trail, and the material after that, and I think there's some transition teething pains, and I think Dawn Trail is a lot of unfulfilled potential. I think there wasn't quite a cohesive vision of how to properly put all the ideas together, and while I really like a lot of the ideas, and I like a lot of the character concepts, like Zeralja, I think could have been an incredible all-timer character, there just wasn't enough build-up and deliberate thought, and I think the structure and prioritization throughout the expansion kind of undercut what Dawn Trail was going for. But I've liked the patches since then. I'm going to actually play 7.5 very soon, in the next couple days, but I haven't played it yet. But recently, the trailer for the new expansion called EVERCOLD has come out, and I've already watched it, so this isn't a blind reaction or anything, but I haven't had full thoughts on. I haven't been able to see it, like, properly focusing. I kind of saw it with not the best audio quality, and it wasn't the best scenario for me to see it. So I have some thoughts on it. So I decided, let's do a sort of a react to it. I can show it here. Let me get rid of iTunes there. Let me fix the camera in a sec. And I want to kind of just react to it. I have some thoughts on a lot of the things that it does. Not a super extensive. This isn't going to be a 30-40 minute video, but I have some things to say, and I'm sure there's tons of theorizing all over the place. Like, a lot of the thoughts is that this is going to be a story about the fourth reflection, some of the theorizing about how that could come to be. I'm sure some 7.5 stuff could lead into that. I'm not going to lean a ton on that, but I find it really interesting. I'm going to just sort of talk about the themes it evokes and the things that most speak to me in this trailer, because, my God, I really like the trailer. It gets me very hyped for the future of Final Fantasy XIV, and maybe I'll be able to coalesce the post-Endwalker world properly into all of 14 in my mind. So yeah, hopefully the volume's okay for this. If it's too, I just don't want it to be too loud. I don't know. Because I won't be talking over it, I'll be pausing. So yeah, let's do it. This is a subtitled trailer for it, from a user named Discordia, who's put subtitles, because I find the balancing for some of these Final Fantasy XIV trailers with the sound can be not great, as much as they are so hype and awesome. The balancing with the sound can be off sometimes. So let's watch. So, I love this little bit. Hold fast to what you must and meet your fate without fear. Pretty self-explanatory for the Warrior of Light. The shards. Okay, so right away, one of my favorite things about Final Fantasy XIV, is how it accumulates and builds upon itself. How the journey of the Warrior of Light and the legend of who they are builds and solidifies and cements itself into folklore and and becomes legend, and how that ties into the Heroes of Eld idea, and how that is so inspiring, and how the example of all these little deeds that we do, the little bullshit quests where you walk 10 paces to deliver a sandwich to someone in ARR, how all that accumulates, all the people you help, how all that builds the Warrior of Light's legend until they're fighting, they're saving worlds, they're saving shards, and how that solidifies itself, and everyone knows who they are, everyone's been touched by them in some way, and how all of those deeds are indicative of who they are, and how that coalesces with their adventurer spirit. Azem, how that dynamic works out with Vanah's spirit, and how Emmet admires that, and all that sort of thing. The whole Heroes of Eld thing and the legacy that's cemented through the Warrior of Light is one of my favorite things about Final Fantasy XIV, and so I love that through this really quick flash through the adventure and see the shards and see the convocation stuff, it really sums that up, because that's a huge part of the magic of 14, this self-referential legacy that gets stronger and stronger. Discover, unite the stars onto one. Some theory stuff there. Let none bar your path. Yeah, this.
One more time. It's my favorite story.
Oh, you know it better than me by now. But if you insist.
Okay, and then here, I adore, well, first, I just love the visuals, and I love the vibe of this and everything, but I really adore how, firstly, the atmosphere and the vibes. We're gonna see more of this. We're gonna see snow, but like you can see, it's very cold. These people are having to huddle up and cozy up to stay warm. I love cold. I love snow, specifically in fiction. I love the atmosphere of a snowy story in a snowy locale. I love the frost. It offers an ambience and a comfiness and a spirituality to video game settings to me, whether it be in Zelda, Pokemon, Paper Mario, The Witcher, Red Dead Redemption 2, Final Fantasy XIV. Whatever it is, I love snow. And so even though it's not like they've been shying away from snow before, you know, we have Ishgard and Heavensward, we have Garlemald, which is famously cold. I am not at all unhappy with them going to a very cold place. And then I'll let this play a bit more before talking about the next little bit.
Yes! Alright, I'm ready. Tell me about the Promised Land.
Long, long ago, in a time few yet recall, life prospered, for the world was rich in plenty. Majestic trees stood sentinel over lands without end. From towering peaks sprang rivers, flowing into and feeding great seas. And noble kingdoms flourished, wanting for naught.
Okay, so a couple things with this is, one, the Promised Land. It's impossible to not think of Final Fantasy VII from that. I don't necessarily know if it'll lead to anything super substantial, but you'd imagine there's going to be references or something, because that's what 14's like, and that's really, really cool. But this idea of this land that was incredibly prosperous, and then, which, as will be explained soon, falls into disrepair, and this land being ripe for a hero of Eld to come in once more and rescue this land is, it's very familiar, but at the same time, I think it's a bit of a return to form in a way, because we haven't really had that sort of idea, not since Shadowbringers. Not really. Not in classical Final Fantasy terms in Final Fantasy XIV. So that really excites me. It feels like a return to form. But one thing about Final Fantasy XIV is I don't want them to lean on old customs, old tropes, old ideas. I don't want it to be, the Endwalker Saga Part 2. I really want it to progress. I really want it to be new. So I hope there's a balance struck between, not losing its identity and sticking with this idea, a lot of these staples that the series hangs their hat on, while also progressing things forward. And that's what I kind of hope for Dawn Trail. And to me, I don't know, there was... Dawn Trail was a whole other thing. Like I said, I have complicated feelings about it, but it is encouraging for me, and I do just generally like the idea of this very classic land in darkness that was used to flourish that is now right to be saved sort of thing, which they'll explain in a second. So, but along with that, there's also the idea of stories warming you up. So they are in a very cold place, and this child wants to hear this story that they've heard so many times before, but it's so beautiful that they want to hear it again, because that's what stories do. In a meta way, these video games, Final Fantasy in general, JRPGs in general, stories in general, but specifically Final Fantasy XIV and the stories within it, these stories warm you up. They help make life more bearable, more beautiful. They inspire hope, and they are genuinely life-changing, as we saw through the whole Crystal Exarch stuff and the Shadowbringer stuff and the Heroes of Eld. So I love that that's an ever-present theme of Final Fantasy XIV, and it's being presented here in a different way as well, because that is what stories do. This child is being warmed up in this devastating cold by narrative, stories of heroes. Beautiful. So, let me just go back here, because... Right. So it's interesting that the Warrior of Light appears before the ice. That isn't necessarily what I would have expected. And the way this story is being told in the past... It's interesting. There could be some time stuff going on. I don't really know. I've only just started thinking about this right now, so I don't have any clear thoughts, but that is interesting. It's not necessarily what I would have expected.
Cold and still, men succumb to bitter sorrow. And as we struggle to survive, they marched, and all was lost. We had no choice but to flee to the sky.
So this is really interesting to me as well. So the cold took over. They were watching, some struggling to survive, people losing hope, succumbing to sorrow. The idea, classic Final Fantasy XIV ideas, Endwalker, and how hope is literally... dynamis, and all, like, hope is literal power. What happens in Ultima Thule, etc. Like, this idea of succumbing to bitter sorrow, the battle with hope, is ever present in Final Fantasy XIV. It's kind of being mentioned again here, which I love. And then the beauty of stories, very Shadowbringers and 14-esque. Love that it's all being mentioned here. But so the world succumbs to bitter sorrow. We struggle to survive. All was lost. They watched, and all was lost. That's really cool. But then we flee to the skies, right? And then where they fled, they were overcome by bitter cold, as after their land was succumbed to cold. And this is really interesting imagery here, because I think it's, after talking with someone about this, it's cool because it looks to be exploring the idea of faith and religion and the nuances of it, and how it can be a saving grace, but maybe an over-dependency on anything, and in this case, faith or religion, or maybe a misled religion, because this person seems to be the imagery here is really interesting. This person cloaked against the cold, facing against the cold, praying, having faith, with this darker, more ominous figure behind, seeming to be, I don't know. I don't know the context. Again, this is me being completely blind. Could be totally wrong. Don't hold me to being right about this. This is just, I have purposely not looked into anything about this story. I've just discussed it a couple times. Looking a bit more ominous, looking kind of overpowering, oppressive, dark, maybe a pressure of imposing a religious order, or forcing faith, or something, or misleading by saying that faith will allow you to survive and persist in this world. But as we see here, she fades away. So that just brings up a lot of questions to me, that are fascinating about religion and or faith and its place in this expansion and how it's going to be explored, and hopefully with a good amount of nuance, because I think it should be a nuanced topic. And I like many things in Final Fantasy XIV, that like everything, lots of things, not everything, but lots of things are tackled with nuance. So I would hope this as well. And the idea of an imposed potential religion or an imposed order, and figures in the background misleading through talking about how this will deliver you from suffering. It reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy X, actually. And then what did it take to actually... Sorry if you can hear any sirens. And then what did it actually take for the world in Final Fantasy X to be saved is, to me, a genuine hero, and in some ways the power of stories. So is the same thing happening here? Because they've established the power of stories here. And then there, just that glance upward makes me torn between, is this an ominous figure, is this a darker figure, or is it someone who can maybe relate with the woman who faded away and is just going, are we just forsaken? I have no idea. The imagery and the body language and the sort of darkness there had me thinking what I thought before, but I could easily be wrong. And then look, warmed up by stories.
Below became a frozen waste. But everything changed when they arrived.
The traveler.
The traveler.
From the sky.
Aye, though in those days we knew them as wanderer.
Okay, I love this shit. So, again, I'm a little... again, as you can tell, I haven't thought about this trailer in depth, so I have questions, and there are things I'm not sure about that I'm sure a lot of you, anyone watching this, I don't know how many people are going to watch this, but that you might have put more thought into, and maybe you have the answers. I don't know, but I just find it interesting and curious that before the land was overcome by cold, we see Alphinaud and Estinian and the Warrior of Light fighting these enemies in a much more prosperous time. And then, again, it says they came, the Wanderer came after to sort of save it from this frozen waste. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. It's really interesting, though. But what I love about this is, everything, honestly. Again, the power of stories, and again, the power of Heroes of Eld. And again, I love the description of them as a traveler, Azem, Warrior of Light, Venat. Has it been worthwhile? All that sort of thing. Beautiful. But a wanderer. Such an evocative way to describe the Warrior of Light at this point in their life. They've suffered so much. They've lost so much. They've lost their innocence. They've found kindred spirits. It's so difficult at times, but they are fueled by a yearning for adventure that cannot be sated. And at this point, I love the idea of, in this, when they're so mature, they're so matured, they're not young anymore. They've been a hero multiple times. They are a wanderer. They are wandering the world. They're wandering the universe, the shards. because that's their lot in life now, is to just continue to explore, but without any sort of distinct... The idea of a wanderer is less pointed and focused than someone who has a distinct goal. I will liberate this, I will liberate this, I'll save this, I'll save this. Here, obviously, they are going to be trying to save this place, but I love the idea that they are now a wanderer. They are someone who has no distinct goal in sight necessarily until they reach a detour. I don't know, something about describing them as a wanderer I really love, and it reminds me actually of Simon in Gurren Lagann right at the end of it, which I love. And also, Reaper. I'm biased because I've been a Reaper literally since I started Endwalker, and I haven't changed that. I don't do raids or anything. I'm not super into the gameplay. I find it fun, but I've been a Reaper for years now, and I don't intend to really change it. I love it because of that, so I feel I feel seen, but also Xenos. I love the idea of carrying forth Xenos' legacy, Xenos who is a Reaper, in some way, in some symbolic way, in some passing on the torch way, in terms of just remembering him like we remembered the Ascians and Emmet. I really like that idea a lot. Xenos is one of my favorite characters in 14. I adore him. I love his conclusion at the end of Endwalker. So I love the Reaper element of it, and how we can maybe get some subtext about Xenos from that, or his legacy and stuff like that. So I'm a huge fan of that too. EVERCOLD. And I love the logo, I love the title, coming in about 8 months. And that's it. So yeah, I'm super hyped for this. I'm really, really excited, and all the stuff I talked about, like the 7 references potentially, the Promised Land, the way that the trailer really leans on stories, the beauty of stories, and the heroes of Eld, and how it reflects on all the ways that have accumulated that make the Warrior of Light a hero of Eld, the Shadowbringer stuff, the idea of hope, like I said, the Endwalker stuff, the Xenos Reaper element, the interesting the way it seems to be told in the future about stuff that happened. Really cool, really awesome framing that just taps into what I love about 14. I don't know how much stuff from the patches will carry over. Like I said, I haven't played 7.5. I don't know. And there's going to be stuff after that before EVERCOLD comes out. So I don't really have much to say about that, but I'm just really excited. Also, it was cool that the Heavensward trio appear again. Alphino, Warrior of Light, and Astinian, considering that they were there in the Cold Heavensward expansion too as a trio. Anyways, I'm just really optimistic. I really think this trailer has a lot of cool elements to it, and I haven't even properly thought about it. Like, I'm sure I've missed some things, and there's lots of things I haven't theorized about, but those are just the things that struck me. Feel free to share your thoughts. I posted one of these when I first saw the Endwalker trailer, and some people got in on that, but that was a couple, like 2 or 3 years ago. But yeah, let me know what you think, if you're excited about EVERCOLD, if you have any theories or any ideas on the themes that are put forth in the trailer, because I think it's a really good trailer in terms of so many ways. It's beautiful visually, all the ideas, all the theories, lots of cool subtext. Yeah. So yeah, let me know. Feel free to let me know. Thank you so much for watching. And I'm honestly, I feel I haven't played 7.5 yet. Maybe I'll hate it, but assuming I don't, I won't. But assuming it's not disappointing, I'm really looking forward to the future of Final Fantasy XIV. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.